before. That is the basic part. It's building on web design. So it is scaling from web design and it tries to appreciate the aspects about more advanced features from web design and understanding now on general aspects about internet applications. Now, in this sense, remember, for example, the web design is part of internet applications. But now you need to appreciate other factors aside from just understanding the web applications, like hosting, moving towards aspects about general aspects on website administration, cutting across issues on JavaScript and deeper into JavaScript, and again, concepts about CGI and the others. So that's where this course comes in as internet applications. And before I proceed, maybe just someone to let me know whether you've done HTML or a website that's web development or web programming. Anyone to let us know whether you've done web programming? Yes. Okay. So if there's no one, I will just proceed. And I hope I'm audible enough, because I'm not seeing any response from you people. Am I audible enough? Anyone to respond so that I know if we are together? Okay, let me just proceed. So I will proceed. Yes, am I audible enough?
Yes.
Jonah?
Hear you loud.
Can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear.
Yes, Jonah.
Yes, I am saying that we are getting you perfectly.
Button. Yes, Jonah, come up, or someone else can respond. Are we together?
Yes, we are together.
Are we together?
Yes, we are together.
Anyone to respond whether we are together so that I proceed? Yes? You are very low volume, Jonah. I cannot hear you.
Very clear.
Yes?
Very clear.
Okay, if I'm audible enough, I can see. Now I want to proceed and share the course outline. Sharing straight the course outline, shortly. Now, shortly. I don't know whether you can. Now, this is the course outline for this particular course, which I can see. I hope you can see from your side. So we will do an introduction to internet application, which is not something new so much to you. You've covered before. We'll also talk about JavaScript introduction and move to advanced development in JavaScript, including TypeScript, markup and data serialization. Some of these things we've covered before. It's only that we are building on top of those ones. There is also internet and web, where we will be appreciating about TCP/IP, DNS, aspects about URL, HTTP. We'll also talk about front-end development, how Front-end development is on aspects about HTML, DOM, CSS, cascading style sheets, client-side, JavaScript, and frameworks. And you know some of these web frameworks that we normally do have for web development. So you need now to use a variety of these available frameworks. Remember, for fast production of sites or websites, then it means that you need the necessary frameworks in place. We also have aspects about APIs, application programming interfaces, and web services. We will be specifically interested on REST API as one of the commonly used API. We'll also talk about backend development, which you know Vincent, Cheruiyot, can we give you some time? You want to say something? Cheruiyot, Vincent? Kindly mute once you join. We'll also talk about the single web page applications such as Ajax, client-side rendering and frameworks, web application security, and data protection in web applications. So that is it. So I'll go straight to make an introductory of chapter 1. That's introduction into internet application. Now, I would have wanted to illustrate something small here. Okay. Because we are not very new to the internet, the introductory class, I would want to illustrate using this diagram here. I hope you can see the blackboard, the whiteboard I've activated. I want to illustrate something small. Now, as I have said, I want us to appreciate the internet. And you know that when I talk about internet application, I am talking about all the applications that are using the internet. So the first main thing that you need to understand is what is the internet? And we say that internet is actually a collection of computers, pulling several computers together forms what we mean by the internet. So it's a collection of information stored in computers, networked together internationally. Now, what is unique about the internet is from the other public networks is that the internet uses a set of protocols called the TCP/IP or transmission control stroke internet protocol. I think from your classes in computer networks, you've before come across the TCP/IP. It's not something new. You must have talked about application, transport, network, and network interface. If you still remember TCP/IP protocol stack. I hope that is something familiar with you. Now, having an understanding and an acceptance that internet is a collection of computers using these standard protocols known as TCP/IP. It would be very important for you to understand how the internet works so that I just move very quickly out of that. So the internet generally works in the analogy of having a client machine. This is client. sending a request to a DNS server. This is the DNS server. So your client machine sends a request to a DNS server, then DNS server gives a reply. This is 1, this is 2. When this client machine, this is where you are using the browser that you normally use, whether it is Mozilla or Chrome. So once your request that is sent from the client to a DNS server, the DNS server gives a reply. And then use that reply now to access the server. So this is the server, or for example, this is the Facebook server, or Kabianga University server, or the Google server, whichever. So can you see the 3 stages here? So when your client machine, you yourself type on the URL section of your web browser, wherever you are typing it like this, www.facebook, this is what I would regard as the URL section. So this request is sent to a DNS server. DNS server is like a dictionary having web addresses and associated IP address. A web address in that regard is www.kabianga.ac.ke. That Kabianga has its own associated IP address, which could be now 192.168.10.0, wherever. So IP address is a number. What is recognized in the internet is the number, and that number is known as an IP address. So whatever the internet knows is the IP address, which is particularly a number. And that number is what now serves to connect you, or serves to allow you to access the server. So straight from your client machine to a DNS server. DNS server gives you the IP address of that site you want to access, then sends back the detail to your client machine. Your client machine now will use that to access that particular server. All this process that's working here is using HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So when your client machine is talking to the DNS server, this process is known as, all this process is known as TCP/IP three-way handshake. You see, your client requesting DNS giving a reply, and then your client now using that reply to access the internet. So basically, I just wanted you to appreciate the working of the internet generally. Now, having seen that, I want me to continue. Okay. I hope you are back to the notes. I can see the notes. Yeah. So I just wanted you to appreciate how the internet works so that I can move quickly explaining these facts here. So how do you connect to the internet? Normally, you use a computer, a connection line, which could be dial-up connection, a cable, a DSL, a wireless or Wi-Fi, WiMAX, and many others. You know those sources of internet. There is also the modem. There is the network software, which supports what we say TCP/IP, which for you are aware what I mean by transmission control stroke internet protocol, from what you learned in computer network, application transport network, and like that. That OSI reference model. So using the necessary network software, application software, and you know these application softwares include the web browsers that you normally know and use, like Mozilla, Google Chrome, and the others. And then an ISP. Source of the internet is through an internet service provider, such as Safaricom, Airtel, and many others. So ways you connect to internet is through public switch network, that's a dial-up access or a modem, cable internet, which is normally using different types of cables, Ethernet, fiber optic, coaxial, whichever. Then digital subscriber line or DSL, which uses actually the telephone network. Then wireless fidelity or Wi-Fi, which you know you have access points from in your university. So you are aware of those ones. WiMAX, which is worldwide interoperability for microwave access, IEEE 802.16. IEEE is acronym for Institute of Electronic Engineering, which is normally comes in to provide standards for communication as well as standards for electronic equipments. That's why we talk about phone charger today being similar, cutting across different phone manufacturers because of this IEEE compliance. So they are complying to a certain standard for electronic equipment. But for WiMAX, I'm talking about IEEE 802.16. There's also satellites, and normally satellites comes in to provide internet to remote areas. I saw a project on Loon project, which was being pitched by Telcom, which never took place as such. But you must have seen those internet balloons. It was a project which never succeeded, but it was a trial to ensure that they provide internet, low-cost internet to remote areas. But we have Google similarly having those balloons, internet balloons, trying to connect remote areas again. And that project is quite successful in India. So those ones were just ways which you could connect through to the internet. Now, I mentioned on World Wide Web, which is a key area in this course. World Wide Web is actually a collection of pages. In other terms, we would say resources and users on the internet using hypertext transfer protocol. I don't want to explain much about how the web works because the same thing as I had introduced, that it is using HTTP. And HTTP, on the other hand, is actually using TCP to transport, control, and data messages from one computer to another. Take note of that HTTP is using TCP to transport, control, and data messages from one computer to another. So what forms a website is just a collection of pages. Several pages forms what we would regard today as University of Kabianga website. So the main page, the landing page, is normally known as the home page. So normally the user navigates the mouse, clicking on the links displayed as text or buttons or images. And normally these links are hyperlinked to other sections of documents, forming a website. That's what you learned in basic introduction to HTML. And you know that to connect to the website, you need to type within the URL section of your browser. So let me admit this. So once you type within the URL section, you type the domain. Of course, we'll be able to see what we mean by this domain, like www.facebook.com. That request is sent to a DNS server, and I've talked about DNS server being a name resolver. Its duty is to resolve the web addresses into associated IP addresses so that they give you the numbers. Remember, the internet understands the number. You know, without DNS, it means you would be running an exercise book of IP addresses. So you'll be writing now Facebook 192.168 Kabianga 102.this and this, like that, you know, so that you access the internet, because the internet knows the numbers. It doesn't know the names that you type, like www.microsoft.com. So I hope you see the necessity why we have a DNS server, so that it assists us in doing name resolution. This is also a very important internet application, or one of the important internet resource, the browser, which you know. I would not want to talk much about the process, but for this case, understand that any other browser has standard support for HTML, CSS, and XML. Any other browser, whether it's Chrome or Explorer or something like that. Usability and accessibility, it has also cache. This cache is necessary for temporarily storing content, so that you can even have histories of visited areas or sites. It has also security features, group policy, Netscape Navigator, which is inbuilt within Internet Explorer, specifically Internet Explorer. You know, Internet Explorer comes in with Microsoft. When you install a Windows operating system, it comes with Netscape Navigator, because Netscape Navigator is inside the Explorer or Internet Explorer, that Microsoft browser. So, of course, you know the advantages of using browsers. They are very cheap, or you pay. Do you pay to download a browser? So we can say it's free and inexpensive. Universal interface, connect with web servers, no matter what operating systems or platform. So it doesn't choose that this is a Linux server, a Windows server. It just connects, not specifically designed for a specific platform. Now, again, browsers require few system resources and little, and those ones. So you understand the aspects about browsers. The other important thing I want you to note is URL and understand this structure. So URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator, and the structure or the syntax of URL is as displayed here. You start with the protocol, the host and domain, port, path, file extension, or the individual file you're accessing. But most importantly, I want you to take note of the host and domain. So domain now dictates the name, you know, hello, helpme.com or kabianga.ac.ke. That is the domain. The domain serves as a unique identification over the internet, so that there are no two domains similar in the internet. We have domain registrants, organizations responsible for registering domain names, so that it keeps domain names unique. So once you need to build a site for your organization, then you need to register your domain. Then domain registrant checks the availability of that domain, or if it has been taken by someone else. Sometimes also you buy a completely somebody's domain. You see, some people are already designed suggested names. So if you need specifically that domain which figures or mirrors your organization, then you need to buy from them. You see? So domain serves as a unique identification. Then we have index.html, which is the individual document you're trying to access. And then host, of course, you understand this is World Wide Web, which means collection of web pages. And then the protocol, HTTP. So get to understand the URL structure. Now, these domains normally end with specific names, .com, .gov, .net, .org, depending on the type of organization. If it is educational institutions, normally it would end at .edu, like that. Government of Kenya.ke, US government.us, like that. So this domain serves to identify the type of organization. I would not want to explain much a repetition on HTTP. You have understood it's a set for rules for exchanging files, text, graphics, images, videos, sounds, and many others. Most important understanding is that HTTP, we have agreed it is using TCP to be able to exchange this data. You see. Now, relative to TCP IP suite of protocols, which you can agree it's basis of exchange of information on internet. You still remember TCP from your computer network class. So HTTP is an application protocol. So just understand that. And normally you have an HTTP client, that's what you install in your machine. But on the other machine that you are accessing, it is known as an HTTP. This is a client, the other one is a server. So you normally use the browser, or your browser is an HTTP client, sending requests to a server. So whatever computer storing resources is known as a server or the other computer you will be accessing. It's known as the server. So the analogy is that your browser builds an HTTP request and sends it to the internet protocol address indicated by the URL, actually targeting the server, in other terms. That's what happens. Now, the other concepts, such as hypertext, hypermedia, which we've covered before. An hypertext is certain words within the text marked with links. Anything having links is known as an hypertext. That is, any text or any ratings in that regard having links is known as an hypertext. The other one is an hypermedia, which are actually media with links. So like I can have a video having links. I can have an image with links. So hypermedia links use the images to point to HTML documents. E.g. here, an hypermedia link might point to an audio file, a movie file, a graphic file, like that. Now, as part of this course, you're supposed to cover on HTML. But now the aspect about covering within this course is not the same as how you covered. It's just appreciating HTML as a whole, then moving to other concepts such as JavaScript, moving to other aspects as hosting, Most importantly, this course cuts to aspects about website administration. So we'll be moving towards appreciating HTML and a trajectory straight to domain. So as part of this course, ensure that you buy your own domain or get free domains, quickly create a website, know how to use a cPanel, make sure that you get your domain and then host that site. Those ones are some of the practical aspects we're targeting towards achieving in this course. So in the next session, I'll just use the next most few minutes to highlight on hypertext, because already I've covered HTML, which is hypertext markup language, and give you a task to create a small site, get a domain. So start shopping for domains, or you buy your domains. I think it's cost around 1,000 in the market, 1,200 or 1,500, depending on the size. So that you can get a site that you have created, you upload, make sure you know how to use the cPanel. So for today, that's the end of our introductory class. We'll be meeting for a physical class next week on Friday, unless there are any questions or concerns.